Hi everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are connected from. Thanks for your taking your time on the weekend from your busy schedule, from your personal life. Let's get started with the first icebreaker. Where are you joining from? Guys, if in case you're not speaking, can you be on mute? Let's get started with the first icebreaker. Where are you joining from? Just to get an idea. By the way, I'm from Hyderabad, India.
Hey, hi guys, good evening all. I am joining from Pune. So this do I need to write the sticky form I need to write?
Yes. Menika, you can't hear? You're having any issue with the audio? We are ready to start the discussion. So we are still in icebreaker. Guys, can you enter that where are you joining from on the sticky notes? We'll get started in another minute.
So just give me 2 minutes. I'll do it. Just 2 minutes. Huh?
Okay, Gurgaon, Coimbatore, Ghaziabad. I know few folks from Pune, Hyderabad who join the discussion. Okay, let's keep moving. Remote working agreements as a team, as a group, beyond mute when we are not speaking, and as an open space, respect others' views, opinions, or pointers. Be with an open mind for the discussion. And this is a conversation where we want to learn from others. It is not just like a one-way communication. And make sure to keep this as an interactive conversation and try to be on with your video to the pause action while speaking. I know I turned off my video because of the internet fluctuation. Whenever possible or feasible, you can turn on your video if you're comfortable, if you're okay with that. Otherwise, make sure to keep it as an interactive conversation. Okay, so before getting started with the topic, what is that the release planning, or what is that the user story exercise is all about? Anyone want to share their views, opinions?
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I think user story is a representation of a functionality or a feature which is present to the development team or what we call as a Scrum team in a humanizing way, understand the user perspective and what functionality is going to be built upon, or how it is built upon, or why it is built upon. So that's the one way to initiate a conversation and build the bridge between the business team as in product owner and the development team.
Thanks, Menka, for that. But just to add on, the concept which you explained is from the user story. But today we are going to discuss about the user story mapping. That is entirely a different context. We'll go through it as we get to the discussion. Share the Migo link again. Yes, Aditya. Okay, anyone else want? What is the user story mapping? Today's conversation is all about user story mapping and or the release mapping activity. What is it, the user story mapping, or why is it required?
Am I audible to everyone? Shyam here.
Yes, Shyam. Hi.
Hi, Satish. So from my understanding, user story mapping is all about charting out the workflow steps of end-to-end user journey, as well as the development journey. Okay. So user journey, when we say user might pass through different steps in their by using the product or the way they use the product in their business scenarios, and tracking that user journey, and within that user journey, what kind of functionalities or features they would require, and in that, by tracking that, we will come to know what all bite-sized features they would need, and that will allow us to break down the bigger features into smaller chunks, and that way you will map end to end. Start with user story 1, then go into the user story 2, and finally you'll end up with user story 10 maybe. And this user story 1 to 10, once you build it out end to end, it will become your feature or functionality within the product. So this is how your user story mapping can be built, and finally it will lead to building a particular feature of the product. That's my understanding.
Thanks, Shyam, for that. Anyone else want to add any pointers? Yes, someone about to speak.
Yes, Isha. So user story mapping comprises of linking user stories to different features and then arranging them as per workflow so that we can slice them horizontally as well as vertically when as and when required. So this exercise brings out all the dependencies on each other, right? So if some user story associates to a workflow later in the stage, you cannot pick it up first before building the first feature or the first workflow stage. So you need to progress accordingly. So once you map out your user stories to the workflow stream, it helps you in your sprint planning and your release planning.
Can I,
Yes.
Satish?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, according to me, user story mapping, it's a kind of dynamic outline. Whatever the let's say that user interaction with the product, and you will evaluate the steps which will benefit the users and prioritize what should be the next, what we are going to build next, and we'll map it. Those user stories will map and we'll deliver those first. This is what I.
Yes. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Subbu. Am I audible?
Yes, Subbu, you are.
Okay, so I think like just to add to what all others said, like probably MVP or the minimum viable remediate or the product, what usually people talk about, or what is the most priority thing that we need to build first is something that can be actually come out of an outcome because of the user story mapping. Like once after someone said prioritizing what are all the steps that are needed from starting to ending, and then prioritizing them in a proper way, then finally we can take like what are the important things, and then we can build those MVP, which will help us in identifying what is the most priority thing that is needed for the end user or the customer at the point of time. So that can be also considered as an outcome of user story mapping.
Thanks, Subbu, for adding the context. Okay, looks like I am having some issue with the Miro board. I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure out which one I'm having access issue. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so some of you took part in the session 1. Some of you, this is the first time you were joining. So what the context we took in the last time, the discussion is a online ride sharing app. The ride sharing app, we took different personas in the session 1. We took John, the driver, versus Rose, the passenger. So different personas we took, and we did the activities about coming up with a persona, coming up with a journey map. This journey map I'm trying to upload to the Miro board. It's not allowing me. I'm trying to fix that issue. So these are the things we did as part of the session 1. So now, as continuation, we can try to have the conversation of the same ride sharing app. What is that the functionalities? What is that the user story mapping? What is the flow, end-to-end flow looks like? And what is that the minimum viable product, or what is the minimum marketable feature? So what is the basic functionality we would like to build if in case we are coming up as a startup and we want to bring this into the market? How we would like to start building up? What could be in the release 1? What could be in the release 2? What could be in the release 3? Or what is might not be even required for us from the implementation perspective? Let's try to start going through that. That is what our today's discussion is all about. Okay, are we good? Any questions? So this is the John, the personal vehicle owner's persona. So we took Bangalore as a location because that is where as a base to start with to launch the app. We want to see the passengers on the same route at the same time when he's traveling, and he also want to join as a passenger as and when he want to. And taking the COVID situation into consideration, he want to see the passenger whether he's vaccinated or not, and he want to decide on the passengers for ride, and the price should be fixed and auto populated based on the route, not with any fluctuated prices and everything. Payment should be automated once the passenger drops, so that John as a owner won't be worried about the payment. And the flexibility to schedule the ride as per his convenient timings, and the option to reschedule or cancel the ride. This is what we defined as a persona from the John's perspective. Okay, are we good with this persona, or we want to add any pointers to this? Okay. So coming to the journey map. For the journey map, we took Rose as an example. Rose is the passenger. So for one activity of the persona, we took the driver as a persona. Whereas when it comes to the customer journey map, we took Rose, the passenger, as a reference to come up with it. So what is that? What all the steps required for a passenger to complete the ride, starting from booking the ride till the completion of the ride? And what is the steps? What is the stages? What is the thought process? The customer here in the context of Rose as a passenger, what is she could be going through, the positive, neutral, and the negative part, and what is the opportunities available for us as a app or as a startup to bring up into the implementation. We did this as an activity. So we took both the things, driver's perspective as well as the passenger's perspective. But we did only one of the activity, taking the time constraint and the other aspects into the consideration last time. Now, how we want to go ahead with this from the. I'm back. Sorry for the net fluctuations. I'm trying to get it fixed. But what I'm trying to say is, like last time we did John the driver's perspective for the persona, whereas Rose the passenger's perspective for the customer journey map. So now for the user story mapping, which of these you want to go ahead with? Or anyways, we'll do the breakouts. So each group, you can pick up one of it and you can go ahead with the discussion. Are we good? Any questions, any doubts, anything before we get started?
Could you briefly elaborate this?
Elaborate what? Can you be a bit clear?
Yeah, actually, I just want to know the key points, what we are doing.
Okay, sure. We will go through the template of the Miro board and we will discuss on it. How you can, as a group, you can discuss and you can do the activity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. I'm trying to add this also into the Miro board. Somehow it is not allowing. Let me see if I can try to get it fixed. Okay, so there is a sample template which is already available. So I just added as a reference in the Miro board perspective. So we can list down the modules or we can list down the steps or the activities and what is the functionality required from that implementation perspective. So if we look at the picture of the rows, we already defined like the registration of the login, available rights, confirming the right, canceling the right, or finishing the right, the payment and the feedback. We haven't completed that part last time, but it's up to us now whether we want to go ahead with the same steps or we might be having different thoughts, different options or different things. Yes, the floor is all open. We can go through that as well. So the release one, as the template is showing MVP, what all the functionalities you want to do under each module and what is that in the backlog, right? So we can add as many releases, as many versions, we can rename the versions, just double click on it and should be renamed. The number is the 8 or 6 is what is showing as per the number of items in that release or in that context. So MVP right now it has 8, the backlog it has 6. So that is what the numbers is showing. So nothing to worry about it. You can make use the MVP, backlog or release 1, release 2, release 3. However we want, we can go ahead and do that. Once that is done, we will come back and we will discuss how we want to group them together into the release planning or the release mapping. Okay, so we have the 3 story mapping groups or the templates created. What is the activity and what is the task? Or you can even consider as a module or the task. You can even add additional tasks or additional activities, additional tasks. This is a template, just a template available. Once you click on plus, it will add additional release. It will add a new story, or you can even add new release. Anything, it is a template. Double click on it. It will even allow to add new release. Yes, by clicking on it, yes, it is asking, it is allowing us to add new release and we can add the stories, everything as well. It is all up to us how or how many we want to go ahead and define. Only thing is, you as a group, whichever group you will be put into, you pick and choose which, whether you want to go ahead with the driver persona, whether you want to go with the passenger persona, and how, what is it have a discussion, have a conversation, which functionality or which module is important from the MVP or from the release perspective, how it can add value to the customer or value to the user, not the customer, value to the user once it is planned, once it is included into the release. Okay, are we good? Any questions, any doubts? Sure, Subbu.
Satish, can you please tell me about the release document? I have learned this document like this term again and again, but I didn't get the actual meaning about it.
When you say what is it, you want to get it clarified?
Yeah, the release documents.
Release document, we are not talking about the release document here, Vijay. We are talking about the release planning. What is the stories or what is the module, what is the functionalities we want to include into the release? Right?
Okay.
See, the release documentation could be entirely different. Whether we got all the sign-offs or who gave the approval or when are we getting ready for the release, it might be entirely different thing altogether.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we are not talking about the release documentation, but here it is like what all the functionalities, what is a story, what is a module could be included into the release and why. Have the conversation about why.
Okay.
Or how it is going to help the end user once it is included.
Yes, obviously.
So if I understand this correctly, Satish, the earlier when you showed that personas, I have to refer that and then I have to write the stories, right?
Not the stories. No need of the stories. Stories we will do in the session 3. We are still at the high level. See.
Okay, so MVP, what we discussed that we need to, what kind of, how it will function and what should be the important pointers we have to take it in consideration.
Exactly.
Okay.
Once we come up with the release map or the story mapping, that's when in the session 3, we will discuss how to write the user story for this functionalities which we plan.
So now we are talking about the walking skeleton.
Yes,
okay.
The high level.
Fine.
We are, see, the stories will typically come at the team level, at the sprint level, right? So even before going there, we need to have the release plan. What is the thing? What is the priorities? What is the scope? When we want to focus on what? That is what we are trying to cover today's.
Fine, understood. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, any other questions? So I could see 24 participants. So shall we split into 3 groups so that 7 to 8 members per group so that it will be effective discussion?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, let me try to see if I can add this persona as well into the Miro board itself. Let me try once again. I don't know why it is giving the issue. Okay, just a minute. Yes, at last I got it. So that you will have the persona, driver's persona and the customer's journey map as well handy so that you can go through it anytime. And you can consider that. Again, you can take it as a baseline. No need to just restrict to that itself. Okay, so make sure to have the open discussion and see how you can get that discussion done. Okay, how about 40 minutes for the discussion?
Yeah, sounds good.
Are you good with 40 minutes? Is it too high or too low? Okay, silence is the answer. Let's go with the 40 minutes. I will breakout. I will add the breakouts. Three rooms. Okay. Okay, so 40 minutes I added. Okay. Room 1, 2, and 3. I am opening all the rooms. Let's get started. Finally, me. Looks like you guys need some help. Let's wait for others to join. Okay, everyone is coming back. Let's wait for a minute. We'll get started. I tried my best to extend the time. It didn't allow me. I don't know why. I am also new to Zoom. So hope you had a wonderful discussion.
Yeah, from nowhere to somewhere is always good.
Good, good. That's what the whole intention of this session. Okay, who would like to go ahead and share their screen and get started the discussion?
I think that the team which had most of the interaction.
Looks like you want to go ahead and start it, Aditya.
No. I think we only two were discussing. So that's why I think we are.
If it's okay, we group B will take the privilege.
Sure. You can go ahead and share your screen, Subbu.
Okay, hi everyone. So we have taken the driver persona to create and to identify what are all the sequence of steps that are needed for us to create an MVP that will help us to create at least a prototype for us to start with our app. So we have identified like these are the basic steps needed, 5 steps needed, or the 5 activities which are needed for us. First one is the registration of profile. And then we are going with an assumption that we are working this app only for Androids. That's the reason why we kept other capabilities in the backlog. And then second one is like identification of passengers. Third one is like selection of passengers. Fourth one is like price rate, and last one is like the payment gateway. So towards the registration, we identified like the registration as a driver with profile. When we talked about profile, it is like a basic details which are needed for the driver to register. And in the backlog, we have kept like the cancellation for fraudulent drops, updation of the driver profile, display driver ratings, and other capabilities such as iOS browser or something as backlog, because we thought like these can wait at a later for a later point of time. And coming to identification of the passengers or display of passengers, we thought like up to 10 kilometers we can identify who are all the passengers available. And in the backlog, we have given other options like probably that have the option to choose a preferred route. So going by an assumption that we'll have a default route, and then the driver should get an option where he can choose a preferred route at a later point of time. And of course, like other capabilities are there in everywhere. And the third step is like selection of the passengers. So that's what we said, like the driver should be able to select passengers, probably 4 we thought of. And then other capabilities which can be in the backlog are the cancellation of passengers, display passenger ratings, and other capabilities. The fourth step being displaying of the prices or the population of the prices. And then probably driver should get a chance later point of time to update the price, and also like update new route whenever that is needed. Lastly, payment should be automated. So we are just going with an assumption that it are all digital payments and there is an app for that. Otherwise, like we thought of having with the basic structure of cash payments initially, and then later we can include the capabilities of card payments, and then wallet, and then offers and all. So since we don't have clarity, we want to ask the business owner Satish on this. So we just kept those things for now in the backlog. So this is going to be our MVP, and these are the steps we have identified from the driver's persona. There are many other steps which are there as a part of driver persona, and then we thought like we can include them as a part of our next activity, probably towards the enhancement of this app at a later point of time. But then as a group, we decided that these are the 5 steps which are needed for us to create the MVP. So, any suggestions or any improvements from your side, we are happy to accommodate them.
Thanks, Group B. Floor is open for any questions, suggestions, comments, feedback. How do you feel like looking at this story mapping template?
It's quite useful, Satish.
Okay. Can we get started with a startup? Taking these as a backlog. Yeah. Okay. So one question or one clarification from my side to Group B. Why do we keep that registration cancellation for fraudulent auction backlog?
Okay, so initially we thought like probably the drivers who are uploading their profile for the first time, probably will have to upload their docs, and then it takes certain time to cancel their registration at a later point of time. Because they are updating it for the first time. So probably we are keeping those capabilities for a later point of time of verification things from the background or something.
But don't you think as a startup, if we consider any drivers who are not having valid documents, and if they go for a ride,
this to be an MVP. We just wanted this to be an MVP. We are not going with all the capabilities, definitely. Just we want to keep it simple. That MVP want to keep it simple, and then we want to enhance those things later, probably as needed. We just want to have a complete happy path initially, good happy path, from starting to ending without any considering that it will be a completely happy path. So so for all the exceptions, we just kept them in the backlog, so that once if the MVP is approved, we can go ahead and then we can take
Okay.
Another option could be that we might be checking the documents manually in the first instance, and automatic cancellation could be something that we can develop later. So we can say that the user will upload the documents and we will approve it, but it's all manual.
Okay. So you meant to say we might have a third person of admin who will take care of all these perspective for Shipra. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not part of group B, but
Okay.
I'm just suggesting.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Any questions? Anyone want to add anything from group B? Okay. Moving on.
Exam passed.
yes, excellent. I keep on moving between all the three groups, and I found all the three groups are equally active and participating in the discussion. Yes. Okay. Moving on. Who would like to go ahead? Group C, Group A.
I can if they're not going.
Sure, Aditya.
Satish, I have. Hi, Satish.
Yes, Arvind. Is it Arvind or?
Yeah, Pratap. Yeah, actually, I'm
Yes.
from Group C, but I have question in this Group B user store mapping.
Yes.
Can we have
Sure,
a digital
go.
documentation verification? Hello.
Yes, Pratap.
Hello. Yeah, actually, I'm saying what can we have a digital documentation verification side by side? We can have a manual documentation as well, both part.
So what I understood is like Group B want to keep that in the backlog for the time being to go ahead with the manual verification, and by the time we release the first version and get the feedback, we can start working on the digital documentation, digital verification part as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, as I said, we just want to have a happy path for our MVP, so that we can have all the other exceptions at a later.
Yeah.
Folks,
So
yes.
I mean, the whole plan of building this from the Group B side is to build the feature with minimum features, and I mean build the product with minimum features that that basically suffice all the basic needs of all the persona, and then roll it to the market so that we can start reaping the benefit at the earliest, and then add on all these features as alternative parts, and then we can keep adding them in subsequent releases.
So I think the point here is that there are some requirements, even if they are not giving you a business benefit, they are still requirements which you cannot get rid of. So security, regulatory requirements, so all these requirements which pertains to security of user data and regulatory requirements. So these are the requirements. So even if they do not give you a profit, you need to have them in the first instance itself. So I guess that's what Satish is referring to as well. Right, Satish? So
yes, Shipra, that's correct.
Canceling fake documents is a secure requirement. So not sidetracked just because it is not following because it is giving you all the benefits and all the happy path. The moment someone realizes that their data is not safe, right? So by the word of mouth, you will lose your in the market, and what benefits you were trying to reap, you will not get those. See what I mean?
Yeah. That's a valid point, Shipra. Yes. Any comment from our group guys?
Definitely, security is an important point to be taken care of when we build the MVP. But do we need to or do, because here what we are talking about, what is the measures that will be needed to our MVP? But security part of it can come as during the user story writing. When we break this into multiple user stories, we can say this should meet all the security criteria. This should meet all scalability criteria. All these
Basic requirements. Non-functional requirements they form basic architecture of your. They form the basic architecture of your design. So even if I take a performance requirement, right? So there is a lot of effort if you try to fix performance issues later, in the developments. But the architecture is designed in such a way that you have minimum performance issues going forward, right? You cannot say that I have built up all the functionalities and now I'm going to change my architecture because I want to improve performance.
Okay, now if you're talking about architecture, yeah, I got your point, Shipra. So if you're
just one example,
yeah.
right? So I'm talking about all the non-functional requirements in general. So security is another aspect which needs to be built in from the start in order for your product to have the credibility in the market.
So then probably we need to go one step higher to build a kind of business features and enabler features. You need to have your enabler or your architectural runway to build the app as such. There your scalability and your security, everything should be there. And that once that enabler is there, that will form your backbone for your business enabler features, which we are writing
So
here currently.
Need to basically strike a balance, right? So you talked about scalability. So you cannot say that I will have 1 million users in the first instance itself, right? You cannot plan for that much scale. So you need to say that, my app should be able to support 10,000 users in the first instance. So some scalability requirements, or better performance. So all those requirements will be enhanced during the development as well. But so what we are saying is that the consideration should be there, right? NFRs is not something that you'll put on backfire. You put it to backlog and say that we'll think about it later. So that's the major mistake, the backlog, which should not be the case, because those NFRs form the base of your product.
No, I'm not saying that we need to put in the backlog, but all I'm saying is that here what we have written in this my report is all about the business features. So we need to have a separate track all together to write about the setting up the app, setting up the server instance, and then you'll have that scalability of that server. You'll have the security constraints, SSO login of that server. All these things, how we wrote this business enabler features here, right? Similarly, we need to have a number of features, a number of stories to be broken down for the features. All those will be part of your enabler. This is purely your business. So there are two parallel things that we need to go in.
We did not focus on enablers, and
we didn't focus on that. Yeah.
Even our team, we put up this question whether we are looking into NFRs as of now or not, mainly because of the time constraint, right?
Exactly.
But
we haven't.
If we are developing a full yes, Satish.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt the discussion. So we haven't explicitly called out that NFRs or the security performance aspects. So ideally, that also could be included in the context which we have given to you guys, right? So from that perspective, yes, what are the pointers, what are the MVP we came up with? Definitely, it is as defined from the context perspective, right? But in the context itself, initially I could have mentioned, hey, this is what I'm expecting, or this is how it should be. The booking, the moment I click on the book or search, right, it should display the available options within less than 2 seconds. But like that, we could have included, or we could have brought that NFRs also into the discussion. Then it will be entirely altogether a different context, right? So now that we haven't brought that, we are good. That's what my perspective is.
तुम्हारा वो हो रहा है, स्विच ऑफ कर रही हो, क्या हो रहा है बेटा?
Vijay, you want to share anything or?
I think he didn't realize he
Okay.
was unmuted, so we put him off.
Sure, sure. Okay, nice discussion. Yes, this is all we need to focus, we need to consider when we start working in the actual MVP or the release mapping or the release planning perspective, right? Yes, thanks. Nice discussion. Moving on. Group C, you want to go ahead? Shipra?
Yes, we can do that. Arvind, will you like to share your screen or shall I do that?
Actually, my system is having
No
issues.
worries. Satish, if you can share the Miro board.
Sure, sure. Let me bring up that.
Anyone from Team C will like to take the lead? Anyone else from Team? No, I guess. Okay, so Satish, we should have started from the top, but I didn't realize it is for the workflow. So we left new activity and new tasks as blank. What we started doing was we started putting up all the features, all the user stories that we were able to think of, all the functionalities that we were able to think of. The next step would have been to arrange them in a logical order, the way the team B has done. But it's just that we didn't get enough time. So our persona was Rose, the cab rider user, and we wrote similar stories to team B, uh, like a registration, registered user login, new registration, finding rights, choosing gap, payment, payment by cash, being able to look at the customer history, being able to look at customer feedbacks or give customer feedback. There should be a function for emergency support or customer support, and I should be able to view in driver details. So some stories we thought will make to MVP, but not necessarily MVP. We could have put them in different releases. It's just that we didn't get enough time. I thought 40 minutes will be enough, but it doesn't look like that. But yeah, so we did some stories in backlog as well, which we thought will definitely a backlog candidate. So, but yeah, so essentially we did a similar exercise to team B as well.
Sure, sure. Anyone wants to add any points? I found one observation from my side before me bringing that up. Anyone else want to add any points? Anything? Group A, Group B, any questions, any doubts, any additions, suggestions?
So I think we can also add one feature on canceling the ride that can also go on.
You want to add it to MVP?
Yeah, as a rider, these are the two basic features that I would be wanting, right? One, finding a ride, selecting, and then canceling a ride.
Okay. Selecting and canceling the ride. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions, suggestions, feedback? Okay, let me bring my point. So the driver perspective, they talked about the digital payment, whereas now from the passenger perspective, we are talking about the cash payment. So we need to find out a balance, which one we want to go ahead, or what's the focus area for us, either digital payment or the cash payment, and what could be the challenge if it is with the cash payment, or what is that is required for us to implement the digital payment. So we need to negotiate the scope, we need to finalize that, and we need to confirm from the MVP perspective.
Right. So why we thought was cash is an easier option is because it is something that can be achieved fast, right? So in MVP we try to built our features fast. So that's why we thought payment by cash is something that will be easier to do rather than connecting to a third-party system and making the payment via debit card, credit card, or UPI. So we thought cash payment is a better fit for MVP. But of course, point well taken that we should have looked at other areas as well. It's just that we were not looking into other areas. But yeah, but yes, we need to find a balance, and that's a very good point, Satish.
So the reason is like, see, me as an individual, I stopped using cash the moment, even before COVID as well, right? So now I don't want to do the transaction. And what if like my rate is only 200 and I gave a 500 note if the driver is not having the change on the timely basis, right? So I mean, there will be different things as such which we need to consider, which we need to focus on. Again, the digital payments is also not a straightforward or easy thing, right? We need to focus on doing the things and how or what we want to go ahead and we want to bring up into the implementation. It could be, what if the digital payment is having an issue, or what if the digital payment is giving a challenge from the integration? Then we can keep that cash payment as a fallback option. Okay. Okay. Any other suggestions? Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the point is like, since we are actually working as two isolated teams of business analysts focusing on one person, right? So I think that was where this conflict of the requirement might have come up, right? But on a practical scenario, it would be the same team addressing the requirement of everyone. And anyways, there is also going to be a review before we present it to anyone in the meeting. So I think at that point it would be sorted out, right, Satish?
Might not be, Kirti. So see, even in the implementation as well. So I worked in one of a banking organization where we have 4,000 team members. So we have like almost 30 to 40 business analysts or the product owners itself. Right. So bringing everyone together into one single discussion. Even when we did that, we had to do the breakouts like the way we did just now. Even then, I mean, they might not be having a common understanding or the common way of implementation. That's the reason we are doing this review discussions and getting the feedback or suggestions from other groups before finalizing the scope, right? We are just still in the base version itself. The MVP part which you came up with, each group, it is still in the base version. We haven't reached or finalized the scope. Once we review, once we go back and forth, that's when we might finalize, and that's when we can take it to the next steps.
Got it.
Right? So it might be the same situation might happen in the teams as well, in the companies as well. Not everyone might be able to work together at the same time.
Right, and I agree, Satish. So even I'm working in a project where there are different BAs who are working on different modules, and it becomes quite a challenge to bring everyone on same page because there are a lot of dependencies. So my underwriting has a dependency on pricing, and both pricing and underwriting has a dependency on documents, and there are different modules which interconnect with each other, and everyone is working on their modules, and bringing everyone on same page does become quite a challenge. So that's a very practical scenario.
So Shipra and Satish, on these scenarios, right, should we do we basically have some kind of a governance system in place?
You can have a internal catch-ups with other VAs. That's what we do. So one thing we do is we in all our client meetings, right, we go together. Yeah, it's a kind of a extra meeting for us, but it does give us a view of what's going on in other areas, right? And we do have internal catch-ups as well, wherein we kind of connect, and if we have any doubts or anything to ask about, we connect with each other quite often. So that's how we resolve it.
And also what we used to do, Kirti, right? So we used to have the breakouts like this, and then maybe half an hour or 1 hour based upon the scope the team has to go through. We will do a breakout, and once they come back, we will review the draft version the way how we did it. based upon the draft version review, we might get some suggestions or some feedback or something which we feel we might have missed out or we could have considered included. Again, we will go back and continue the discussion conversation. Right? Either it could be happening the same day in the same conversation, or maybe a day or two later, or maybe a 1 week later, based upon where we are currently in the implementation process. Right? It might not be done in one single discussion.
Got it. Yeah.
And what if, like, for example, the digital payments, just to give an example, we might want to check with the third-party teams. As of now, we are not sure whether they are okay to support with us or they are okay with our timelines, the release planning, the timelines and everything. Right. So maybe we might have to take it as an action item and see who want to go ahead and have the conversation, how we get the confirmation from them. Again, when we say the digital payments, there are multiple sources, multiple ways, right? Which of these we want to finalize for the MVP? Yes, again, that could be some of the action items, maybe to the business owners or to the strategy team, and they can go back and they can bring that clarification as such.
Got it, Satish. Yeah. Thank you.
And one more thing is, even if we have built up the features on an individual basis, right? Per persona, we have built up the user stories. Ultimately, everything will go into one big release plan, right? So it's not like so there is only one team that is working. So we can have multiple Scrum teams, but at the end of it, it's one project, right? So it's the complete release is planned at project level. So when we do release planning, all these user stories, be it from persona A or persona B, everything will go into one a big release plan, and that's where all these discrepancies will start coming out. That team B wants digital payments as part of MVP, and team C wants cash payments as part of MVP. So those discrepancies were will become quite visible when everything fits into one release plan.
Right.
But how do you resolve those discrepancies?
By having further meetings.
That's
so one of them need to take the action item, Aditya, so to resolve it. So now I'm the business owner here. So that's the reason I found out that, hey, there is a discrepancy. Let's resolve it. Let's discuss it on it before going further. Right. So we can't like that. One of them or some of them will identify when we go actually in depth, in detail into the these discussions, right? So that is what our focus is. That is what our action items is. Then by the time we go to the release planning or the follow-up, the user story mapping itself, we might get those resolved. Or if not, it will be still an open action item where one of them or some of them might be owning that path to get it clarified, resolved before proceeding further. Okay.
yes.
Okay, Group A, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so we also took the similar, Satish, it's similar what Shipra has shown. We also took the rows of the passengers. So I'm sorry that we spent a lot of time on some to understand this because we
no worries at all.
So we haven't used Miro.
Sure.
But yeah, same lines I have also done. The registration. Can I share my screen?
Sure, you can.
Sorry, I wrote it in Excel. That was a pretty feasible for me.
Nothing to be sorry. We are all learning, even the Miro part.
So
or
same
anything.
thing. This is registration part we have kept, and then login. Schedule the ride, cancel the ride, onboarding, finishing the ride, rating, and support. That's what we put. And under this, for the MVP, we put the cancellation fee, and whatever the search, right, source, destination, what we put, fare, vehicle type, and the confirmation. Username, forgot password, registered email ID, sign up, and so sorry I didn't put anything in the backlog because I didn't get a time. We had only 20 minutes, but yeah, I'll do it in Miro. I'll add it once we're done with this.
Sure, Aditya. Anyone want to add from Group A? or any suggestions, any comments, feedback? Okay, thanks Sadicha, thanks Group A, thanks everyone for sharing your plans and everything. So if we observe, each group went in their own way of discussion or their own way of presentation. It is still fine. The end goal and result is like how we are trying to bring in the value to the end user, to the customer. What is that we are considering as a group to focus on the MVP versus the next versions, right? So again, when we thought of the discussion, we thought we can have both the user story mapping as well as the release planning as well. But looks like again, we are done with the time with the user story mapping itself, but still we are good with the discussion. Any suggestions, any comments, any feedback, or anyone wants to add any points?
I do have a question. So
Sure.
Shipra was mentioning about the non-functional requirements. So with all these different backlog items, and because we have to consider the non-functional requirements in the beginning itself before even implementing the functionality, does that mean that each of this backlog item, which turns into an MVP or a single incremental user story, that means every single user story will have its own NFR made, or are we going to be considering the NFR requirements at the feature level? Like, for example, let's say login information, that itself is a feature. So do we accommodate the non-functional requirements at that level for that particular story or as a whole?
So Menka, non-functional requirements are at product level usually. So some requirements may go to a particular feature level, but usually the non-functional requirements are at product level. So they are defined at a higher level than features or functionalities. So if you are saying my system should be able to support 10,000 users at a at a time, that's a scalability requirement, right? So you will not say that it should support 10,000 users for this functionality and not that functionality, right? So similarly, if you are saying my only authorized users should be able to access the system, so that is a security requirement. You will not say authorized users will be able to access one part of the system. Maybe per functionality permissions can be given, but the access to the application itself, right? So that is defined at a higher level. You will not define it at a functional level.
So then, if I'm visualizing this. So it will the non-functional requirements will have its own epic, and once we finish all these feature functionality, we try to in parallel work on the non-functional requirements too, and then make one big release. Is that how it works in real time?
Non-functional requirements are built into the architecture itself, right? So you decide on the technical architecture of a new product. Unless it is an existing product, you are so all this exercise that we are doing, we are creating a new product altogether, right? So
yeah.
You need to build something from scratch, and for that you need to design the architecture first. That's a technical design of your product. So the NFRs are usually catered into the technical architecture. That's what Satish also mentioned, right? So architects needs to be in part of these discussions, because they need to have of what's upcoming. So what functionalities you will be designing, and then they can give their inputs as something is doable or not doable, and other way around is they can ensure that the architecture they are designing caters to all the functional requirements that you have.
Okay.
So, but again,
Now that
sorry, yeah. So, please go ahead with your question.
sorry. I think this is a little deviant or a tangent to this topic, but now that with the agile, there is DevOps and everything. I was just trying to understand, like, if the product team designs the feature, the functionality and everything, and as you mentioned at the product level, if we are trying to include the non-functional requirements, is that going to be like a part of the DevOps wherein they start integrating the DevSecOps and all those things, or is that something that from the application team or the product team, they try to design the product and then they try to make sure whether it is respect to the security or the scalability and all those things. They run it on the Jenkins pipeline and then pass it on to DevOps. How does this come together? I guess
it's all collaborative effort, right? So there is no one team working on a product development. You have your technical architects working on the same product development. You have your business analysts defining the functional requirements. You have your infrastructure team who is setting up different environments, right? You have your project management team who is looking into release planning and all those timelines and coordinating with the customers. So it's a collaborative effort of the complete team, right? So there is no one person owning it. So you cannot say that business analysts own NFRs, right? Even they don't own functional requirements, because even functional requirements are being owned by BAs, Dev, QC, and everything, right? So it's all collaborative effort.
Okay, and I guess at that point, it depends on how the organization is structured. Like every single product team might have a DevSecOps person or a DevOps person or a BA product owner and the technical team.
Yes, it depends project to project. So
yes, it might differ from organization to organization as well, Manika, as you mentioned, right? So one of my implementation where I worked, right? So they have a separate DevSecOps team for the whole product altogether. Right? In the other implementation, each team had the capability built in within the team itself. So it might differ, it might vary from how the organization is taking the things as well.
I see. Got it.
Right. So
thank you.
That there is no one single straightforward way or approach how each organization wants to take it. But when it comes to the NFRs, right, the security or the encryption, decryption, all these things, the module level, the team should be responsible for. But the overall performance, overall security, there might be a separate team altogether who might be focusing on that hacking or that the performance, like at a time, the 10,000 users could be able to access the app. Those things could be handled by a separate teams altogether. But let's suppose if the username and password, when you are registering, the password should be encrypted and decrypted. That should be handled by that specific team who is working on that. We can't rely on a separate team for getting it done.
Okay, but as a whole, when we are trying to make that release,
yes,
as that product, that particular thing will be handed off to a separate team where they will look into the security aspects of it as a whole.
Yes. Again, it varies. It differs from how the organization goes from the release planning or the release implementation perspective.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
So I have a question for Satish and Shipra, right? So I understand now as how I need to channelize my end user needs as a functional requirement in my application, right? We do a persona and then we survey them, take their needs, and then we try to convert them into a feature in our radio board, right? But the non-functional requirements are quite tricky, right? Let's say I'm building a app, something like Facebook. Today, since the app itself is not there, I might not know how many users will log into Facebook at a specific point in time, right? So should we rely on the tech arcs and maybe on the historical data on, like, let's say there was an app called Orkut. We need to understand like how much hits were there at a point in time in Orkut, and then we need to scale our product to the same level, and do we need to add that number in our non-functional requirement? Because I really find it really hard to put a number on all the non-functional requirements in the inception phase of the project.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So the way the architecture itself is defined, we need to, especially when we are starting from a brand new app or brand new product perspective, right? We might have to do some analysis and see how easy, how tough it is to upgrade or expand or roll back the number of users. Right now, most of it is like being built or being implemented on the cloud versus the APIs and everything, right? So how easy, how tough it is. Let's suppose today we have 100 customers accessing the app at the same time. Let's suppose tomorrow all of a sudden 1 lakh customers started using it. How easy or how tough it is for us to upgrade or downgrade from that perspective. We might have to do some analysis, and based upon that, we can try to see how we want to go ahead with that. And definitely the architects would be the one who can try to guide us in that perspective, because we don't have a historical trend or anything as such, especially it is a new app as such.
Makes sense, Satish.
One
Right?
more thing is, Kirti, as you mentioned, like if we have to develop Facebook, we might look at Orkut numbers, right? But that information might not be available to us because Orkut is our competitor company, right? Correct. They will not make this information available to us. So what we may not be able to depend on that information. What we can depend on is our architect's opinions, right? What he think is feasible. What we can do is market research. We can discuss with our strategy team how many users they want us to target in the first cut, and then we can do a POC, right? So technical POCs are carried out to figure out what is feasible and what is not. So performance requirement, right? So everyone can say I want a transaction to go through in 1 second, but that may not be feasible at all, right? So the technical team will carry out a POC and say that we can say that minimum it will take 10 seconds. So that becomes your base for the performance requirement. And of course, inputs from different teams, market, strategy team, architectures, your POC. So all these inputs feed into defining the non-functional requirements.
Got it, Shipra. Yes. Thanks, Satish. Thanks, Shipra.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. I shared the feedback link on the chat. Feel free to provide the feedback. Again, it is all anonymous. Nothing, no information is captured, just to see how we can go ahead.
Satish, just a question. So is this session is recorded so that I can review the link? I missed half an hour.
Yes, it is recorded. I will upload to YouTube and I will share the link.
Thank you.
So that you can go. You can only catch is like the breakout rooms discussion will not get recorded. So, but the before and all this conversation, that 40 minutes of breakout won't get recorded as of the Zoom functionality. But the initial conversation, all this conversation, the reviews, everything will be recorded. I will share the link.
So thank you.
Share with everyone, Satish.
Everyone, I will share with everyone.
It will be posted on the BA Club Telegram.
Yeah, it will be. I will post it. I will share the link. Most probably by tomorrow. It will take some time to process it and upload it. By tomorrow, you can go through that.
So if any one of you have joined us from any other groups, because Satish, I posted it on quite some groups, right? So
yes,
in case you have joined us from any other groups other than the BA Club Telegram group, do join us on BA Club Telegram group. Alternatively, you can go to Satish's YouTube channel and he will be uploading the video there as well, right, Satish?
Can you share the Telegram group details also, Satish?
Yes,
or
I will share
directly
that.
add me.
I will share, or I will try to add Avicha. I have your details. I will share.
Thanks.
Sure.
And I think I missed the session 1. So that be accessible?
Yes, that link is also there. I will share that session recording as well, along with this session.
Okay. And how many more sessions do you all plan to have for the VA
maybe
discussion?
Another 1 or 2.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's the next question. What would you like to have in the next conversation? Most probably in the month of July, between July to August. in the next
It
3-4
is once
weeks.
a month.
Yes.
So it's usually one session per month. Okay. I think I just kind of curious to know as to how this comes together when we are trying to build the requirements in Jira, and how this will be broken up, like story slicing. Some of the business models are so complicated. Like I work in an energy industry, and the business model is so very complicated. So it would be good to have an idea as to how these, once we do the feature mapping, how does it break down into an epic, or, and the next hierarchy level is a theme or a capability, depending on the organization, but just to get a general idea. So would that be possible?
Next session, what we planned is like bringing that these functionalities into features as well as the user stories, slicing down the features into user stories. So that definitely we can do it, Menaka. But epics and themes will be entirely different context altogether. We will see how we can bring that part.
Okay, and then writing the acceptance criteria will also be discussed in the next session.
Yes, we will see how, see, the 2 hours is not sufficient for everything to get covered. So maybe as a follow-up session, we will do that part. Right? Okay. Because the setting up the context and getting it started, once we have to start with the features, and then once we have to start with the user stories, slicing down the features into user stories, that itself will take 2 hours, definitely. And then the next session, what I thought is like the prioritization, different prioritization techniques. And that is the next two topics which I thought of, but yes, open for suggestions.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed the first one. So second one is prioritization techniques, and first one is
bringing that functionality into features and user stories. Breaking the now we came up with MVP, right? So now how we convert that into features, how we slice that feature into user stories.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, using that all the invest technique, the user story format, and everything. We can do some hands-on, and then the second session is about the prioritization, how we can do the prioritization.
Right.
Okay.
So this was a good session, Satish, and definitely a good discussion.
Yeah,
thanks,
I agree. Satish, Shipra, both you. This is something I'm not in line with. But today there are a lot of terminologies which I heard only, but today I got a clarification over that what exactly those mean. So thanks a lot for doing this session and sharing with us, Satish.
Sure. I'm also learning every day. This is all part of my learning exercise.
That is also one. Continuous learning will never end.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for taking your time over the weekend again. We will share the details of the next session. When is it planned? Most probably July end is what I'm thinking, mid of July to July end. Let me check my calendar and we will keep you all posted.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us today.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Have a nice
Thank
weekend.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Satish. Really appreciate
Thank
it
you.
all.
Sure.
Thank you.
It was a very good